And I say delusion in a very affectionate way. I mean, delusion is a huge part of my life. If it weren't for delusion, I wouldn't have become a comedian at all, because particularly starting out, there's so much failure, and amidst that failure, you have to tell yourself it's going quite nicely.
Welcome back to the palace. This is Crown Vic, and as promised, this is the video on the superpower that is hidden within us all. So before I go into this video, I would like to say it's been a little delay. I wanted to come out with this video a while ago, but a lot of things kept popping up in life, and throughout life I've been trying to fine-tune this hidden power for myself. What do we mean by superpower? Alright, so superpower, once again, I'm not talking about anything external. We're always talking about external things. I'm not talking about Spider-Man, I'm not talking about Batman, I'm not talking about Superman. As you can see, these superpowers requires that they do something that we can externally validate. Spider-Man with the web, Superman can fly, have laser beams, and Batman has his gadgets. When we talk about spirituality, we're talking about something internal, all right? And I started this video off with a clip. One of my favorites, his name is Mike Birbiglia, and I remember him talking about this superpower, and then he mentions this in the beginning. And if you have caught on to what the superpower is, then stick to the end, because I want you to not only understand what the superpower is, but also the pitfalls of this superpower. Because if you do not know the pitfalls of the superpower, then you will fall prey to it. And because this superpower right here has gotten a bad rap, and in fact, it's known only for its bad rap. But here on this channel, Crown Vic, I want us to practice being alchemists, right? And what I mean by that is that we're going to transform darkness into light. What is bad about this world, and how can we transmute it? How can we turn it into the light? How can we make it a positive thing rather than always seeing a negative thing? How can it empower me rather than destroy me? This video is sponsored by Nike. Now I'm just playing. Nike doesn't sponsor this video. For me to say that will be delusional. In fact, that is the topic of this video. That is the superpower we will be discussing right here, right now. The power of delusion. Now, I have an article on my website, and it lays this whole argument for that I'm standing or taking a stance on delusion in a formal way, but I'm not reading that article. Alright, if you want to read it formally written, then you can go on my website, victorreeves.com, and check it out. But here, once again, I'm just going based off of, my experience and just shooting from the hip. What do I mean by delusion? So when we listen or when we hear delusion, we typically think about a delusional person. Someone has lost his mind. Oh, this person is after me, and he's like, who's after you? The shadow. You don't see the shadow? Look at the ground, and you talking about your shadow? Yeah, that's a shadow that's chasing me. That person's delusional, right? Or this person, there's so many examples I could use as far as delusion. You get the point. Anytime when you listen to the word or hear the term delusion, we think about it in a negative way. But how can we flip delusion and change it into something more positive? How can we see it more of a constructive thing rather than a destructive thing? Here on this channel, what I want to focus on ultimately is practicality when it comes to spirituality. And here, when it comes to delusion, how can we practice this in a more practical way so that we can transform our life for the better? Say, for example, you have a bad day. I've been having a series of bad days, best believe it. I've been practicing this. By the end of the day, see it in a different light. What can I learn from this day? And be delusional about how the day actually transpired. after you get all the facts out of the way, after you've done all the things that you can do, how could the day have been better? Right before you go to sleep, rewrite the script of that day. If your boss yelled at you, imagine your boss actually was giving you compliments. I'm gonna tell you a story real quick, and I don't want to make this video too long. Because my last video is way too long. Alright, so I was a teacher before a truck driver. I was a teacher in the middle school. The principal that used to come, through the hallways was like, as another teacher described, was like hell on wheels. And every time she would call you to the office for a teacher, not teacher conference, but more of a review. I forgot what the actual words for it. But pretty much to figure out your progress, like go over your progress as a teacher. She would just cut people down, whether she's calling you into the office for that or, visiting your office for observations, XYZ. So I was no different than these other teachers, to the point where it was already a tough year. It was 2020 during this time. And we had to deal with COVID. I was a teacher in a middle school. Everything was hard, man. Everything was hard about this job. People were dropping out of this job like flies. And I was one of the few teachers that remained throughout the entire year. But best believe it was difficult sticking to the whole job. And she didn't make it any easier. Every chance she got seemed like she was cutting me down. So instead, I started rewriting the script in my head. I was being delusional about it. This person's not cutting me down. She's actually raising me up. This person is not trying to see me fail. She's trying to see me succeed. And then lo and behold, a couple weeks later on, these things began to transpire. I began to act differently, present myself differently when it came to these teacher reviews type stuff. And she noticed the confidence and demeanor in me shift because of this. And she said, "Oh, you seem to become more confident in that." And I noticed that you seem to have an understanding on this, of this job and what I'm looking for in this job. And as the months continue to transpire, this tide for her started to shift. She got her reviews coming in, and eventually she got demoted. But before she got demoted from principal to, I forgot what she became, she was telling me about how she wanted me to come back, into the job of being a teacher next year, even though she admitted to trying to fire me this year. Not only that, but she wanted me to continue this role that I was doing with this after school program, because she thought I was great for that role. She said she saw a lot of potential in me that she saw before, and she was just trying to hone that potential. But of course, that wasn't the case at first. It was me being delusional, rewriting the script in my mind's eye that we're all energy, and thoughts are also energy. It's sending out energy, frequency, and vibration. How can we use delusion in a more practical way? You might ask. You can use delusion in a more practical way by, say for example, just using the role as a teacher once again. If you're saying to yourself, "I'm actually a great teacher," even though the experience itself and the students are all responding with you, telling you that you're not a great teacher, and other teachers and principals perhaps telling you you're not a great teacher, you're telling yourself, "I'm a great teacher." You're telling yourself, "I'm making great connections." If you continue to say to yourself these things, and you convince yourself, almost hypnotizing yourself, that you are these things, behave in a way that prove these things. If you are a great teacher making great connections, what does a great teacher making great connections do? So they reach out to students, figure out what their individual needs are, and then you meet those individual needs. This is what you do as a successful teacher. So to use delusion in a more positive and constructive way is more to than just rewriting the script, but also figuring out what it is that rewriting the script, from your perspective, how will it change your approach to that situation, and will it improve your situation? This is how we use delusion and the superpower in a more powerful way. However, the pitfalls, once again, is knowing that you have to do the right thing. And by right thing is that you don't want to spiritually bypass certain things, such as if you have bills coming in. It's great to say that the bills are actually checks, but don't ignore the bills. If you have an electric bill, if you have car payments, car notes, so on and so forth, don't ignore reality completely. You want to distort reality, in a hypnotizing way that as you go to sleep, as you will. Because it is said that as you go to sleep, your mind can't really distinguish the real reality, and there's 5 versions of reality. Once again, check out my website, victorreads.com, and you're going to check out and read the article on delusion, and I'll break this down a little bit more clearly and I state there are 5 realities to reality. All right, and there's the first one, which is the physical reality, and there's the 5th one, which is more of a personal reality on a conscious level. And this is pretty much what I'm talking about right here. You don't want to ignore the first version of reality, all right, which is the physical reality. You want to deal with the physical reality as it is. But as you go to sleep and you hypnotize yourself, your mind can't distinguish physical reality from the conscious reality. That's when you start to be delusional about this reality. Oh, this is not a bad day. This was actually a great day. All the universe is doing is working for me. And then you do this over a period of time and keep convincing yourself of this. Eventually, you're going to see exactly what you wish to see. And that's ultimately what I'm talking about here when it comes to the power of delusion. You don't ignore the physical reality. Deal with the physical reality. Don't fall for the pitfalls of spiritually bypassing it, ignoring the bills, and then now you're homeless because you didn't make any mortgage payments or rent payments, or you don't have a car because you didn't make the car note and you messed up your credit, so on and so forth. Do what needs to be done, but in a time when it comes to brainstorming, in a time when it comes to figuring out how to approach these problems in a more psychological way, as you're going to sleep, as you're waking up and you're convincing yourself, then you be delusional about how you want to approach it, how you wish to approach it in the end, as the version of yourself that you wish to be. But until then, deal with reality as it is, but then still act like you're actually, like, say for example, you are paying the bill. Oh, I'm actually, be delusional about it, like pay the bill, but just be like in your head, I'm actually getting paid for XYZ. And this is what I'm constantly practicing. And as I'm doing my meditation, I constantly visualize myself and the version of myself that I wish to be. Although the reality right now says otherwise, eventually things that I wish to happen will come to pass. This is what I believe, and this is what I'm holding on to. The superpower that we have access to. Remember the famous superhero quote, with great power comes great responsibility. Delusion is a great power. Be responsible for it. Be respectful of it. Because if you don't, then you're going to fall for the pitfalls, which, once again, is what it's known for. The dark side of delusion, which is what everybody knows it to be, is a distortion of reality in a negative way. Make it a positive one. And always use it to your advantage. This has been Crown Vic. Thank you for tuning in.